My grandfather was a missionary.
My family background.
My family background is that my grandfather was a missionary in Africa for about 40 years. And my father continued that tradition, as has my brother, having been missionaries in Africa and Asia. And presently, my brother is a missionary in Haiti. We were a church-going family. It was the central part of our life. We went not only to church, but my family led many of the Bible studies, and we also went to Christian church school up through high school.
Did you go on any missions yourself?
I did go on many missions myself with my parents and with our church groups. When I was 4 years old, we moved to Kano, Nigeria, where my father served as a dentist and my mother's a dental hygienist, and my brother and I became very much part of the culture. It was an extraordinary experience for children because it showed us at a very young age that most of the world does not have the privileges of living in a country like America. We went back to Africa when I was 6 years old and lived in a mission in Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya, where my father served in the same capacity. I come from a missionary family. My grandfather served in Africa for 34 years as a surgeon and built a village. My father continued that tradition as a missionary in Africa and Asia, and my brother is presently a missionary in Haiti. I come from a missionary family. My grandfather was in Africa for 34 years and helped build a village and was a surgeon there. My father continued that tradition and lived all over the world, both in Africa and in Asia, and presently my brother works in a hospital in Haiti many weeks out of the year. Let's start that again. But the brother thinks too much. I can't get his gig down. He doesn't live there. I come from a missionary family. My grandfather lived in Africa for 34 years, helped build a village, and was a surgeon. My father continued that tradition. When I was a young child at age 4 and 6, we lived in Africa, both in Kenya and Nigeria, and my brother continues that tradition, serving in Haiti. Yeah, these experiences of being able to live in Africa as a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old were transformative in that they showed us as children that most of the world does not live with the freedoms and standard of living that we as Americans are accustomed. And it created in both my brother and I a passion for giving back and for service. Growing up in California, I did work as a child and as a teenager. My first job that I can remember was I was the official house cleaner, a housekeeper. Every Monday and Thursday, I cleaned my mother's house. I don't cook because I cleaned and she cooked. At age about 5, my brother and I started a small company together. He was 7, and we had a bread company. And we sold bread that started quite small and grew into a rather large enterprise and did that through our teenage years. And subsequently, I had a desire to go to the East Coast and spend some summers working in both DC and New York. And so I bussed tables at a coffee shop to pay my way to make that happen. I went to Claremont McKenna College in California. My decision was based on the academic rigor of the school, its reputation for excellence in economics and government, and I proceeded to go to Harvard Business School after a few years in New York. I first became interested in politics at about age 8. My parents took us on a wonderful trip to the East Coast in the early 1980s, and we were able to see many of the cities that were founding cities of our country. And I remember distinctly going to Washington, D.C., and wondering what it would be like to be and work in some of those buildings. And so that was the beginning of my dream and interest. I subsequently was fortunate to be able to intern for a congressman, and then it proceeded from there. My family's dynamic with prayer and our relationship with God was always very much the way that we lived. It was not only something that we did, it was our way of life. My parents have strong principles, but they live and practice what they believe in a very dynamic and personal way. And so we began each morning in prayer. We were raised to get up at 5:30 in the morning since first grade. We had our Bible time, made our beds. We had prayer at breakfast and family worship. And then each night we had our Bible time and prayer. Monday nights were family night, which was more of a game night. But every weekend, my family celebrated a day of worship for God, and to have a non-commercial day of family time and worship. And so everything that we did centered around our church and our faith and our school. I have a brother who I love very much. He's 2 years older than I am. He is an adventurous spirit. He was always a step ahead in his intellect, always had a skip of adventure and a streak of mischief. We did not go to college together, but he went on to become a doctor and rides a motorcycle to this day to his hospital. He's been known to ride a razor scooter through the surgery rooms, much to the chagrin of the nurses. He's an amazing kite surfer and he has a wonderful way of combining his mission service and medical service with athletic adventure. He has 2 young boys who are the same. My brother and I, growing up, spent a ton of time together, and we used to build things in the woods. My father is an outdoorsman and loves the mountains and the great outdoors, and so took us hiking and camping for every vacation. And so my brother and I, in addition to running our bread business together, built as good of a rendition of Yosemite Park in the woods behind our house as we could, and we worked on that tirelessly weekend after weekend. So we spent a lot of time creating things together in the outdoors. We're very good friends. My brother is funny. He's lighthearted. He is excellent as a surgeon, but he doesn't take himself too seriously.
Okay, good.
Ted is really their friend and their buddy.
Ted is
Oh, as a father to the girls, Ted is really their friend and their buddy. They are so excited when Daddy comes home. Ted loves to play games. He loves to get down on the floor and put a puzzle together. He loves to take them to Chuck E. Cheese, I think a little bit more because he enjoys playing the games there than even they do. He's the first one to take them out ice skating and to the park. And Ted's just he's extremely playful, and he's able to put work and stress behind him to just really have a good time with them. And so they are so excited when he's home. He loves to read to them. He's very animated. And our littlest one always wants someone to fall asleep on the floor next to their bed, and I often find Ted with his head propped up against the dresser, fast asleep at bedtime.
From your perspective, what is Ted's relationship with his mom and his dad?
Ted's relationship with his mom is one of a deep love and friendship, and she is a wise counselor. Eleanor is level-headed, she's non-judgmental, and she's always very open to telling you what she really thinks. And Ted goes to her to rest, to talk to an old friend, and to get advice.
For Raphael?
Ted's relationship with his father is one of inspiration. Raphael has inspired Ted all his life to be a freedom fighter, to appreciate and value the dream that is America. He admires his father at a deep level. On their day-to-day interactions, they counsel with each other. They don't always agree. And as the Cubans are, they are sometimes blunt disagreement, but they're always at heart truly have the deepest admiration for each other. Faith plays an incredibly important role in my life with Ted and our 2 girls. In fact, it is the central role that guides our family. I look back over the years, and I remember the day that Ted and I met, and I remember very clearly each special year that has ensued. And I see how God has led us because we have had faith that we are on a mission for Him. And I think all of us are on a mission for Him, regardless of your profession, of where you live. God has given us, I believe, each talents. Every single person in this world has talents that we were born with that are God-given. And what's been such a special part of our relationship and how we want to raise and instructing our girls is that you can know and learn and develop the talents that God has given you, but those talents are not specific to a city, to a state, or to a job, or to a title. But what we are all called to do is to use those talents for Him, and it could be in a number of different capacities. And so everything that we do is centered around our faith that He is leading our family to serve Him and to be his hands and feet on this earth. And it may be through our relationships, through our jobs, through our children, through their schools. And I believe that for every family in our country. And so we are working hard to impart on with our daughters that by having a relationship with Jesus Christ, that they will learn what their talents are, and it will lead them to fulfill the mission that he has. We practice that every day. I start out with breakfast, even when Ted's in Washington, with breakfast at 7 a.m. We have their lesson from Sunday school that we read together, and they memorize the Bible verse of the week, which luckily is only one line long, and they earn points. By the end of the week, they can recite the verse. And if you can add the text and the numbers, you get extra points. So they're quite eager every day to see who can say it the loudest and who knows it by the evening. We always start our meals with prayers, and if we're ever in a rush and anyone forgets, Catherine, our 4-year-old, always stops the prayer and the dinner to remind that we have not had our prayer, and she loves to pray. And then at bedtime, we have bedtime story, and it is a children's story that has a spiritual lesson, and we often read that alongside a Bible story of Daniel in the lion's den or Delilah, and we really enjoy showing them how the characters of the Bible live out certain character traits. And they have amazing memories, and they remind us of times in the day when we need to practice those character traits of patience and calm and serving others. Many people have commented on Raphael and Ted being both great speakers. And in my humble opinion, if you were to ask me who was the better speaker, I would have to say, I think Ted, but I'm never confused as to where he acquired his extraordinary trait. If anyone were to ever ask or wonder, it is absolutely not true that I am cooler than Ted. Ted is absolutely the coolest person in our family, and I say that from the bottom of my heart. He is funny, he's lighthearted, he's the first one to say, let's go out on a date. He's the first one to come home when there's so much to do or when we're in the middle of packing and say, let's go to dinner or let's go to a movie. He is a movie buff. He can quote you any movie line that you can think of from back to the 1950s. Ted loves to play games. He has a photographic memory for references and people. And any bit of coolness that I may have added would be simply on the attire front. There are times when people have asked me if Ted is serious at home and teaching the children about the Constitution over the dinner table and directive in any way at home. And at one time, a question came up in some way to my 6-year-old if her father talked all the time at home about the Constitution and freedom. And she simply answered, my daddy only talks when he's outside the home. When he's home, he's very quiet, but he talks a lot when he's outside of our house. So I would have to say that Ted does not talk about the Constitution over the dinner table. I wish he would once in a while a little more. I would. One of the wonderful things about my husband that I love is no matter how many times I hear him speak, no matter how many events I go to or spots on TV, I always learn something when I really listen to what Ted is saying. And I know our children do too. And it's quite lighthearted at home. There are those who wonder what role Ted will play or should play in politics and what many of our different leaders in the country should play. And I believe that there is not only a role for Ted's idealism in America today, I believe it is an imperative, whether it be Ted or someone else, that we reestablish Ted's idealism in the leadership of this country. This is not about deal-making and backroom deals and having voters think we're doing one thing and actually doing something else. This is about keeping alive the idealism that is our country. And if you strive for the ideal and you push yourself to get there and you take responsibility and work hard and believe that you can be way more than you can be, we'll get there. And there's a song that inspires me so much by a group that many people know that says, it's a spiritual song, but it says, you lift me up, you raise me up to be more than I can be. And when I'm on your shoulders, I can be more than I can be. And I love that song because I believe that it speaks in a spiritual way to the idealism that is this country. And if we raise each other up and strive way beyond what's possible, we'll get much farther than any other alternative. If you were to ask me, is there a place for Ted's idealism in politics, we only have to look to our founding fathers. Our founding fathers that created the greatest documents of our time that have led our country were idealists. They spent hours together creating the ideal system, wrote it down on paper, and it is what we have benefited from for 2 centuries. I would describe Ted as a visionary, as a forward thinker, as a strategic mind, but also as a throwback to the times when America was prosperous, when people believed in the American dream, and when they believed that the next generation would have a better life than they did. I would describe myself as a traditional mom, and it is my most important role. And people may ask, and there may be different definitions of a traditional mom, but for me and my daughters, a traditional mom is someone who is the emotional center of the household, who is the first one who wakes them up in the morning and gives them that hug, who sends them off to school and gives them the confidence that they are talented, that they can learn and they can succeed, and that they have the love of a family to support them, and that it's okay to make mistakes. I'm the first one that sees them before they go to bed at night and tucks them in and gives them a kiss, and I tell them every night that I'm proud of them. And to me, the role of a traditional mom is to provide that love and support and emotional center for the home. And whether Ted's in Washington, D.C. or with us in Texas, that is my not only most important role, my most valuable role, but also my most treasured role. Our daughters, Caroline and Catherine, love their father. And Ted was first elected to the U.S. Senate when Catherine was barely 2 years old, and Caroline was 4. So all that Catherine has known is her daddy being in the U.S. Senate, and she is very proud of that. She loves going to Washington, D.C. to visit him and to see his office. On the other hand, our now 6-year-old was quite remembering of the times before he was a politician, before he was a U.S. Senator. And she will often ask, why do people want a picture with Daddy? What is Daddy doing? Why is Daddy in D.C.? And there was a time when we were flying back from Washington in the back of Southwest Airlines, as we always do, and Catherine said very loudly, Caroline, we should move to Washington, D.C. to be with Daddy all week. And Caroline said very clearly right back in a loud voice, full of a flight of what I'm sure were Houstonians, said, Catherine, we will not move to D.C. We are Texans. We will stay in Texas. One time when he came home, they always run to the front door and jump on him and want to play games, because that's what they do together. And one time they were running towards the front door, and Caroline shrieked, there's a guest in the house, there's a guest in the house, he's coming, he's coming. So even though they know that he's very much part of our home, they do sometimes see him as a guest who comes and goes that's all full of fun. There was an early time when Catherine had just turned 3, and she asked where, you may want to cut this, but she did ask, she came into the bedroom one morning and looked around and said, where does our daddy live? And I said, well, he lives here. All his clothes are here. This is his bed. And she said, where you live is where you seep. And he was not seeping here this week. So another time we went up to Washington, D.C., and we had just landed, and we got to our apartment, and the girls were so excited because Dad was going to be there. And he was traveling that evening for a speech. And we came into the apartment, and Catherine, the only way that she knew that we were in Washington, D.C. is because it would be where she would see her daddy. And so she went to the home, and she looked in every single closet for him. And when she came out, she looked at Caroline, and she said, Caroline, we are not in Washington, D.C. We have landed in the wrong city. Daddy is not here. I first got into the financial services industry because the combination of my family background of living abroad and serving people in a very real way coincided with the timing of when I came into the workforce and joined the post-college professional workforce. And my desire was to be able to serve people in their businesses in the similar way that my family had served people through healthcare. And at the time, the Soviet Union had just crumbled. Latin America was going through an economic revolution, and I was very attracted to the financial services industry to be able to go and work in these countries and help develop a business sector where entrepreneurs could thrive in countries and systems where they had not been previously able. That was my original inspiration for joining the financial services industry. I presently am in the financial advisory business in Houston, Texas. I find the work incredibly satisfying because I'm able to work with families and help them realize their dreams. I work mostly with entrepreneurs, and it's a very satisfying experience to be able to use some of the expertise of our firm and my colleagues to be very much. I was in the financial advisory business? Service, yeah. I was in the financial advisory business in, do you want to say in Houston? Okay, because this is going to be posted after my leave of absence? Yes. Okay. I was in the financial advisory business in Houston, Texas, serving families. Most of my clients were entrepreneurs who had amazing life experiences of creating companies, of inventing, and it was very satisfying to be able to be a real part of their lives and to offer the expertise of our firm and my colleagues to help them develop and grow those businesses and plan for the future. And it also provided me the flexibility to be there for the very most important things in my life and my family, and for Ted. Glee. Yeah. Do you want me to tell the story of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I will tell it and you can cut and tell me to start over.
We might double
When
it. We might
Ted,
just do it twice. Who says we're going to cut it?
okay, when Ted read the story of Green Eggs and Ham to the girls on the Senate floor, I happened to be that day at work in a different city. And I received a call from the car that I was driving to my client meeting saying, Ted's going to be on the Senate floor momentarily, and we need the bedtime story. And Ted's favorite books to read to the girls and their favorite books to listen to that are non-biblical Bible time stories are Dr. Seuss. And so I said, let's pull out Green Eggs and Ham. I knew that the children were in the bathtub at the time. And they ran to the television, pulled on their jammies, and stood peering into the TV to watch their daddy read one of their favorite bedtime stories to them on television. And I think it helped them understand how important they are to us and that he is to them, and that this might be all something much, much bigger than our family that he's fighting for. My favorite line from Green Eggs and Ham is the repetition of Sam saying, it's Sam I am Sam, it's Sam I am. And that is Ted Cruz. He is Ted Cruz, he will always be Ted Cruz, and he says the same thing to every group that he talks to because it's who he believes, it's who he is. He's Sam I am. We need you on our team. Less than 1% of our donations are from Washington. We need you on our team because we need you to be all in with us in this effort in fighting for freedom and liberty and standing as Ted has been standing for all of us in the U.S. Senate. Ted's Senate campaign was not from a few people. It was from thousands of people across the country doing everything that they could to help him fight for them. And what I loved about that campaign is no one ever asked anyone to give more than they could give. We asked, and I ask you today, to give the maximum that you are capable of and that's comfortable for you. Because everyone in America can give a different amount of money. But we need every $5 donation makes a difference. Every $10 donation makes a difference. Every $15 and $20 and $50 and $100 and $1,000 makes an enormous donation. And we need you on our team. We need we need not only the financial support, but we need your time, and most of all, we need your prayers. And we are grateful for you to be part of this effort. We need you on our team in this fight for liberty. Less than 1%, far less than 1% of our donations come from Washington, D.C. And in Ted's U.S. Senate campaign, he was elected because thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over the country were all in with us. They did everything that they could in terms of donations and time and prayer. And every single contribution matters. $5, $10, $20, $50. We need not only your contributions financially, but also your time and your prayers. If everyone gives the maximum that they're able to give, we will win this race together, because this race is about you and about the future of our children. We need you on our team. I would ask that everyone give the maximum that they are comfortable giving to this campaign and this collective fight for liberty and freedom. This is your race. This is our race. This is about you and fighting for the future of our country and for our children. And the way that Ted won in the Senate race was by thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the country giving everything that they could. Less than 1%, much less than 1% of our donations come from Washington, D.C. Where our contributions and time and prayers are going to come from is from all of you, and we need you on our team. The intensity of this race is picking up, and we need to show America that we are united in our fight for freedom, and we need you to show that we can regain and retake this country. If you're tired of Washington being broken, if you want someone who's going to fight for you, we need you on our team. We can't win without you. If you're tired of Washington being broken, if you want someone who's going to fight for you, we need you on our team. We can't win without you. If you're tired of Washington being broken, if you want someone who's going to fight for you, we need you on our team. We can't win without you. If you're tired of Washington being broken, and if you want someone who's going to fight for you, we need you on our team. We can't win without you. If you're tired of Washington being broken, and you want someone who's going to fight for you, we need you on our team. We can't win without you. We first met on January 3rd of 2000 on the George W. Bush campaign in Austin, Texas.
We were both working on the policy staff. I was doing domestic policy, she was doing economic policy. And we sat in cubicles about 20 feet apart from each other.
My first impression of Ted was that I thought he looked like a 1950s movie star. He was confident, he was funny, and he was clearly having fun while being very, very productive.
Ted, same question.
Heidi stole my heart almost immediately. She's beautiful and she's brilliant. But she's my best friend. You know, we met on January 3rd. Our first date was 2 days later. We went out to dinner, and we had a 5 or 6 hour dinner. We just spent the whole time talking about her family, talking about her grandparents, talking about our hopes and dreams. And it was a whirlwind from the very first day we met.
It was a 5-hour date. We got married May 27 of 2001, and so that would have been just about a year and a half after we first met. We'd never been on vacation together. Our families had met, but there was a lot that we didn't know about each other, other than we knew that we shared the same spiritual grounding principles and goals in life. Our daughters to us are a daily reminder of our love for each other and of the wonderful way that God has put families together to create new life and to help us guide young lives to develop their talents and to fulfill their mission for Him. So they remind us every day of why we work hard, of why Ted is serving our country rather than in the private sector in a more lucrative career. And they also just bring an enormous amount of joy. 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds rarely have a bad day.
Ted, same.
Our daughters are the joy of our lives. They're happy, they're funny, they're full of life and spirit. They're very different. Caroline, our eldest daughter, who's 6, is a spitfire. She has an opinion on everything. Her nickname is Monkey because she climbs everything. Catherine, the 4-year-old, is a quieter spirit. She's sweet. She'll crawl up in your lap. She'll just hug on you. And I got to say, both of them, they love their mommy. I'll say Heidi is an unbelievable mom.
And you're an unbelievable father and dad.
You know,
They've taken to calling alliterations of animal names for whatever your name starts with. So Daddy is Daddy the dinosaur, and Mommy is Mommy the moose.
you know, they're. I'm amazed by Heidi every day. She manages to do more in one day than I can imagine doing in a week. She is a serious professional. She has had an incredible business career. She is an unbelievable mom to our girls, showing up at every school play, at every performance, at their soccer games. And then she is my partner in everything I do. She's my best friend. And I don't know how she does it all. Any one of those should be a full-time job, and yet she does them all at the same time.
Well, Ted has been known to fly home from Washington for 2 hours to be at a soccer game and to make the piano recital and to fly right back. He's also been known to take a call from me on his cell phone on the way to the Senate floor to get a little bit of advice on my daily life. And we help each other. We are great partners, and I often will say, hold on to something that I'm doing, sneak in the other room and call Ted, grab him off the Senate hallway, and get his advice before I finish my memo.
You know, the single hardest part of serving in the Senate is being away from Heidi and the girls. Every Monday morning, I have to get on a plane and fly to Washington. And to see those 2 little girls run up and grab you, one will grab one leg, one will grab the other, and they'll just say, "Don't go, Daddy." And it all brings tears to your eyes. But it's also why I'm doing it. It's also why I'm fighting, because we're fighting for the future that they're going to inherit. We're fighting for the world that will be our kids' world. And right now, the opportunity that our daughters should be inheriting
That all of our kids should be inheriting.
is fading away. Our liberties are under assault right now in Washington, and I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't look my daughters in the eyes if I stood by and did nothing while their future, while this country, while their freedom was eroded.
I had a very interesting bedtime conversation with Caroline not so long ago, where she wanted to know what was going on in some other countries and what the word invasion meant. And when I explained to her that everything that we are doing, the events, the dinners, the times that Daddy asks people for funds and their time, is not for us. It's not for our family. It's for all the families around America who have the hope of reaching the American dream. And as a 6-year-old, she got it for the first time. And she looked at me and she said, "Mommy, that's worth it." Pastor Greg Mott and his wife Kelly have been a God-given blessing that was unexpected. When we first moved to Houston, we were looking for a church, and we visited many churches. And I grew up in a small church, so I was not as inclined to go to a large church. But when I spent one Sunday morning listening to Pastor Greg and his message, we were there. We were going to be members of that church. And Greg and Kelly have been a special part of our lives. We text, we send verses to each other. And somehow, Pastor Greg always sends a text that he's praying for us on that day when we need it most. And I'll tell you, the Sunday before the U.S. Senate election, I went with one of our dearest friends who'd been so helpful, and we went to church. We didn't have time. We were raising funds and phone calling and phone banking, but we went. And Ted was at a different church speaking, and one of our dearest friends and I held hands listening to Pastor Greg, and he came out, and this was not for Ted, this was for our country and for the election that was going to be that Tuesday. He made an appeal to the church, and he said, I had a whole message planned for today, but we're going to spend 45 minutes in prayer. And we are going to pray that people make the right choices for this country. It was not about Ted. It was about the freedom to vote. And he's spoken to us in so many ways, and they're central to us. We pray with them frequently, and they're dear friends.
You know, we're members at First Baptist Church in Houston, and our pastor, Pastor Greg, and his wife Kelly are dear friends. They're our age. And their story, the path that Pastor Greg took to being pastor of a very large church in Houston is not a typical story. Both he and his wife are graduates of Texas A&M University. And when he was at A&M, he started a Bible study, started it in his apartment. And it started off with a handful of students, and it grew and grew and grew to where it has over 10,000 students a week coming to this Bible study. And what happened is First Baptist is an institution in Houston. It's over 100 years old. And when its longtime pastor, Dr. John Bassanio, retired, the church put together a search committee. And they recruited, Greg Monty was 33 years old at the time and was running the Bible study at Texas A&M, a college Bible study that had grown to 10,000 students. And he came in, and part of the reason why Pastor Greg means so much to us and Kelly is that they're real. They speak from the heart about the challenges people face, about the journeys that each of us travels, our faith journey, our relationship with Jesus, the challenges of being young parents and raising kids, and they become just dear friends and a real source of strength and encouragement to us.
One of the things that I love the most about Ted is, I think in our relationship, we were looking for the same thing, which was a partner. And I think Ted and I are both very much partners. And the most important aspect of that partnership, which is different than a business partnership, is that I think we both have a very, very deep and real admiration for each other. And I always think when I'm listening to him speak or when we're at an event together, if we weren't married, I'd want to just spend time with that person. I'd want to go have a coffee. I'd want to know what he thought that day. And that has been a critical element of our partnership, is that we really admire each other and we enjoy spending time together.
We have a number of family traditions. Every Friday, we try to take the girls out to pizza. We go to California Pizza Kitchen. We get a corner booth. The girls crawl up on the booth, and we order pizza and just hang out together. And then we try on Sunday nights to have a date night. And we do that almost without fail, just the two of us. After we put the girls down to bed, we go out on date night. And you know, our date night is almost always the same thing. We go out for dinner and just spend 2-3 hours talking. I mean, Heidi is my best friend, and my favorite thing to do is just talk to her. And I'll tell you, there's so many things I admire about Heidi. I admire, number one, her diligence. I've never known anyone who works harder, who is more driven. I remember when Heidi was giving birth to Caroline. She was literally on her BlackBerry working while she was in labor. I had to pull the BlackBerry out of her hand and say, "Sweetheart, it'll be there when you're done. We have something else to do now." She is up at 5 in the morning working. She's up at 1 in the morning at night before she goes to bed. And she really is unbelievably disciplined and driven. She's got a heart for service. Being raised as the daughter of missionaries, I mean, when she was a little girl, she was 4 and 6 years old living in Africa. She was playing with kids there who spoke only Swahili. They spoke no English, she spoke no Swahili, but yet they played as only children can play. And one of the things that has made this journey so incredible is that whatever slings and arrows may come, I know that Heidi's always by my side. I know that we're a team. And I know that we share the same understanding of why we're doing this, why we are pouring ourselves into fighting to turn this country around. Because life isn't about material gain. Life isn't about a fancy car. Life isn't about a fancy television on the wall. Life is about making a difference in other people's lives. It's what she saw as a kid when her parents were missionaries, and it's what I see being the son of an immigrant who came from Cuba seeking freedom, that we've got to make a difference in our country. And that's why we're doing this. I'll tell you something else that I really admire about Heidi. She's strong. She is a strong woman. You know, one of the things that was really striking to me when she and I met is she had had a similar experience that my mother had had. My mother battled her father to become the first person in her family to go to college in the 1950s, to go to Rice. My grandfather didn't think women should be educated. My mother's strong-willed and stood up and fought him. Heidi has a wonderful, loving dad, but they've had a relationship with, at times, some sparks. And he didn't want her to go to college where she did, and she stood up and fought her father. And in fact, she had made money as a kid selling bread, selling thousands and thousands of loaves of bread as a little girl, and she took the money she'd made selling bread as a little girl to pay for her first year in college. And it was very much the same experience where she knew what she wanted, and she was strong and was going to stand up and make it happen. And I admire that strength. And I'll tell you something else. I think Heidi is an amazing role model for our daughters. Both of our daughters look at Heidi, and they see that a woman can be beautiful, she can be brilliant, she can be strong, she can do anything she wants to do in the professional world, and yet she can be warm and loving and a mom all at the same time. I don't know how Heidi does it, but I know Caroline and Catherine look at her every day and see that example, and that's an incredible example for our little girls to see.
Okay.
We need your help. We can turn this country around, but it's up to us, the people. We can't do it without you. We need your time. We need your prayers. And we need your contributions. Please, right now, come online and give whatever you can. $5, $10, $20, $100, whatever you can. Help us have the resources to communicate a message of hope, a message of freedom, a message that we can get back to the principles that made this country strong. Please join us. We need your help. Please join us. Together we can turn this country around. We can bring back the freedom, the hope that this country was built on. Please contribute whatever you can. $5, $10, $20, $50, $100. Let's do this together. We need your help. We need your prayers. We need your time. And we need your contributions. $5, $10, $20, $100. Together we can turn this country around. But we can't win without you. We can turn our country around. We can defend liberty, but we need your help. We need your time, we need your prayers, and we need your contributions. $5, $10, $20, $100, whatever you can do, we can't win without you. The only way to turn our country around is we the people, the American people. Washington's broken, but together we can defend liberty, we can bring back the Constitution. Please click below. Help us spread the message of freedom and hope. Help us bring back the American dream. Together we can turn this country around. We can defend liberty, we can defend the Constitution, but we need your help. Washington isn't going to do it. It has to come from the people. Please, we need your time, we need your prayers, and we need your contributions. Let's bring back the American dream.